Sugar industry is an important industry in Taiwan, starting from 17th century and lasting until late 17th century. During the Japanese colonial period, Japanese brought modernization in the sugar industry, enlarging the amount of sugar production in southern Taiwan. Due to the importance of sugar, many places in southern Taiwan are named after the sugar industry, such as Nanbo, Dingbo. Because of the word, Dengbo means sugar cane mill. Dengbo is the traditional place of making sugar, relying on millmen and cows to push a mill to extract the juice of a sugar cane, then make it sugar. After the modernization brought by Japanese, machine replaced the old Dengbo. Not only Tainan, but also NCKU was closely related to the sugar industry. NCKU was established in 1931. The courses taught in NCKU enabled many students to work in sugar factory after graduating. During Japanese colonial period, the sugar industry was dominated by several business companies. The four main companies are Meiji, Teikoku, Danippon, and Taiwan Sugar Corporation. Xiaolong Cultural Park belongs to Meiji Company, and is also an important center of producing sugar in the north of Taiwan. Due to the effort of Tainan government, sugar refinery in Xiaolong and Madou are now transforming into Xiaolong Cultural Park and Zhongye Art and Culture Center. Around 2001, some people planned to remove the forest behind Zhongye Arts and Culture Center in order to build houses. But we thought it's better to preserve the industrial heritage of sugar, not only because it contains the Japanese-style buildings. But also because Madou district was lack of a location for activities to take place and an attraction for tourists to travel. The Xiaolong Cultural Park contains 14 warehouses, so it's considered a great place for holding large exhibitions with different themes. Managing a cultural park is a management of culture and creative industries. With limited government budget, it wouldn't be an easy task to upgrade the culture park properly. Attracting people to buy tickets and souvenirs are crucial for the success of a cultural park. Working on marketing strategy of the Xiaolong Cultural Park would be a great chance for NCKU students to consider how to bring new life to the industrial heritage.
成大来经营这个骁龙万园区总研艺文中心，怎么样来吸引游客？然后呢，可以打平，甚至还可以有更多人来就业。那像这个就是一个很好的课题啦。
Sugar refineries mostly took place in Tainan, while salt refineries mostly set up along the western coast of Taiwan. Salt industry started much more earlier in history, since salt is essential to everyone's daily life. In the mid-17th century, there were small amounts of salt production. In the late 17th century, Chen Yonghua introduced a new way to produce salt, called 天晒盐, which dried the salt under the sunlight. However, the traditional method could not produce much amount of salt. During the late 19th century, the Japanese brought modernization to salt industry, increasing the salt production, enabled salt to be exported to Korea and Japan. Anping was the first place to set up salt refinery plant in 1920s in Tainan. It belongs to Taiwan Seto Sugar Corporation, a business company established by Japanese. Unlike sugar industry, which was dominated by some companies, the salt industry only belongs to Japanese government. With the improvement of industrialization and the needs of war, edible salt and industrial salt are largely produced in the western South Taiwan. Salt refinery plants expanded from Tainan to Jiayi during the mid-20th century. These salt refinery plants are now important cultural heritages of the coastal area in the western South Taiwan. Recently, these salt refinery plants has transformed into tourist attractions, such as Qigu Salt Field. Nowadays, it costs higher to make salt in Taiwan comparing to other nations. Therefore, Taiwan started to import salt instead of producing it, causing the decline of salt industry. The abandoned salt factory and salt fields were later transformed into tourist attractions and conservation areas. For example, in Beishanwei Waterfowl Reserve, you can find a salt field, the former government building, and the dome of the salt farmers. To protect the natural reserve located beside the salt field and salt factory, people are not allowed to enter the surrounding area of Beishanwei without permission. In other words, the equipment in the salt field could not be repaired and preserved. After the attack of typhoon in 2009 and the flood in 2018, part of the salt field and factory equipment were destroyed, making the repairment even harder.
研友们他们要去做一些修缮的工作，变成没办法去执行，那他们也很困扰。那当然就是说，这边是台江
National Park Administration and Tainan Agriculture Bureau worked with Tainan Hydraulics Laboratory of NCKU, attempting to repair the salt field. They also cooperated with people from Salt Farmer Association to learn how farmers used to manage the salt field in order to work out how to bring the salt field to life. After Taiwan joined GATT in 1994, large amounts of sugar and salt are imported into Taiwan, gradually causing the decline of traditional salt and sugar industries. Many salt and sugar factories unfortunately closed in 1990s. Right now, only Huwei and Sanhua sugar refineries are still working, while the remaining salt fields such as Beimen, Anshun, and Budai all transformed into tourist attractions. Salt and sugar industries are one of the oldest and the most traditional industries in Taiwan. Both of them went through the process of modernization during Japanese colonial period and the decline in the 20th century. Taiwanese now can barely see the process of producing traditional salt and sugar. By taking a tour of sugar frost and salt flour, you can see the rise and fall of the traditional industry. The place we are heading to is Anshun Salt Field, which is an important base of salt producing. Even the Crown Prince Hirohito had visited the salt field during Japanese colonial period. Also, it contains some Japanese-style buildings that are worth visiting. Besides, we would also head to the Xiaolong Sugar Refinery, where used to be an important sugar factory. Though it did not produce sugar anymore, we can visit the old warehouse and see the equipment there as well. By visiting these old factories, we can learn how Japanese modernized salt and sugar industries, and the reason why these industries comes to an end in the 21st century. Furthermore, there are a group of people in Jali works hard to bring back the traditional way of producing sugar. We hope people can understand the traditional technique better through the process. We would also invite former salt farmers and people who used to work in traditional sugar industry to share their stories, so you can learn how an industry influences people's everyday lives.